The following presentation contains content that will offend the virtue signaling of both the left and the right, and may be a very fake threat to the fake news of our fake democracy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Nope. Fuck that. No. Worship me.
Paradigm Shift.
An educational comedy.
It's not a cause, not a movement.
It's not a social group you can slap a label onto.
It's an idea. It's an intention.
It's an intuition.
A mindset in which reality can be explored.
Through genuine expression,
Discernment.
critical thinking, and imagination.
To look inward upon ourselves.
To better understand the external world around us.
And yes,
Few egos are bound to be bruised.
With our silly, zany, politically incorrect,
George Carlin built style of going about things.
real and raw honesty.
Which invites you to be
to the fullest.
Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another insane edition of Paradigm Shift, an educational comedy, which is simultaneously yet another edition of the Vinny Eastwood Show with Vinny Eastwood, and I'm Dave Kelso. This is kind of like, it's not a simulcast. We're not doing a double stream. It's kind of a multicast. First, we're airing live on Vinny Eastwood Show, and then I'm going to take that, and it's going to go as a PSEC episode. So it's kind of like a double feature here. I'm going to have that as a premiere. Anyway, we are also here with Katerina Roy and Richard Hamilton, and hopefully shortly Mel V of Conscious Consumer Network will also be on with us. She's apparently running a little late. She said she's definitely going to be here, so hopefully, the Rothschild family didn't put out a hit on her and succeed or something like that. I have no idea. She is from South Africa, and after all, it is apparently a crime to be white these days. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, and today's episode is called Taking Back Our Power. Because when you live in a brave new world, Orwellian shit show, where your government is trying to kill you, but you're worrying about somebody giving you a reply with more characters than a Twitter post, you know you're living in Orwell's world, and it's time to take back your power from a world that thinks that being genuine and authentic and honest and good and moral is a mental illness. And if you don't use the right pronoun, it's a criminal offense. Well, sorry, you can't use pronouns with me. I prefer adjectives, so there you go. There's the many adjectives used on me. So, first, since it's been a while since we've all been on here, as a matter of fact, I think it's the first time that all of us have been on at once. The last time Katerina was on, it was me, Vinny, Katerina, and Max Egan. And then the last time Richard was on, it was me, Richard, and Vinny. We were talking about what a wonderful job the professionals have done in making this world into a disposable economy shithole where human life is the least valued commodity on the planet. Oh, yep, gotta love that. So anyway, between then and now, we're going to talk first about what's been going on with all of us. I know personally I had an interesting synchronicity where on DeviantArt I came across this girl by the name of Megan Coffey, ends in EY, not EE. I watched the first video I watched was a video where she was dealing with emus, which I do believe are from New Zealand synchronistically. They're like black, funky looking ostrich things. Oh, they are. Okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, in that ballpark anyway. Obviously, Australia is a lot closer to you than Chicago. Yeah.
That's why I live in Maui.
Yeah, Katerina's in Hawaii. So lots of interesting stuff that's happened with all of us, I'm sure. So let's kind of take turns catching each other up to speed. Who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay, Katerina, you go, and I'll shut up.
I think 2015 you said is when we last all had our powwow, right? So yeah, ever since then, there's been a lot of taking back of personal power in my realm. And it kind of started with, taking back my power from illness. So yeah, Richard, before you got on, Vinny, it was funny. Richard was like, damn, you're hot. But I used to be like way heavier. And then I ended up dropping a bunch of weight and getting all my health back. I had Lyme disease and like all these crazy autoimmune disorders and issues that, somebody's knocking on our door, and I got a bus, and like now we live in Maui. It's like all these different things that happened in order for us to really just live more of like the intentional life that we want. Somebody who is doing pan flute just came up to my bus and is knocking on my door and trying to talk to us. I have a big painted bus, and that was part of my personal empowerment, was like to decide to just get a giant bus and to make it my house. And I've been doing that here on Maui. And it's been really interesting because I've noticed that a lot of the locals who are being totally reamed by rent are very inspired by the fact that we just decided to like fuck the system and just be like, we're going to get out of this. So we're going to just do it our way. And it's opened up a whole different kind of life for us here, which a lot of people don't experience. So that's been pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, all in all, I feel like Dave and I really have talked about this for a long time, but the individual needing to take their own power back is really how the awakening spreads, and how people can really, we're seeing so much traction with the internet and people really standing in their own personal power. And I think that just that ripple effect is really contagious. And I think that's kind of why we're at this point where we are in humanity. And it's exciting because I see a lot of momentum growing, and just a lot of different people who are fed up with the way that things have been. And it's really exciting to just watch all the little kernels of awareness popping on people. So yeah, that's been what's going on in my world. And I've been painting a lot, doing a lot more art, just being more self-expressed, because I think that that's like the biggest fuck you I can give to the elites and like the establishment, is just to be my own radically expressed feminine self without being a feminazi. Because I think that that's the delineation right there. It's like, I don't want to be the fembot crazy people who are just like, very programmed and very controlled by George Soros.
Femputer disapproves.
Right?
Autoimmune disorders and other diseases provided in part by George Soros, Monsanto, and the Clinton Foundation, courtesy of Agenda 21.
Hell yeah, right. That's exactly
what. By the way, really funny synchronicity. When you were talking about moving into your nice, pretty, painted, long bus house there, on the other side of my room, I heard a very familiar snap. So I went around back to check and see if it was what I thought it was, and lo and behold, somebody just moved into a tiny, little. It's a mouse.
Got a mouse. Woo.
Yeah, my little live mouse trap here. I don't know how well any of you can see that, but it's an interesting synchronicity because you're talking about moving into a long colored object, and this little mouse at the same time moves into this long colored object. So that's a very interesting, and a green object, and Vinny's using green screen, so maybe that's another partial synchronicity. I don't know, but that was like, what kind of bizarre timing?
His face is priceless right now.
Any time that could have happened, it happens exactly at that time. This is why God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, has a sense of humor. Like, it totally does. Hey, we've got globalist elites. That's as funny as it gets. Look at Clinton. I'm Slick Willie. Oh, my God. Although, speaking of people who can actually do Slick Willie impressions, let's move over to Richard and see how he's been doing and what shifts he's been going through and stuff. Take it away, Richard.
Well, it's been a while, Vinny. It's been a few years at least. A lot of personal paradigms that I imagine we've all been going through, and a lot of clearing and a lot of growth. And it's been really cool to see not only our personal strides and gains, but to see humanity kind of slowly beginning to take those infantile steps into some responsibility, especially with what's been going on this year with all of the protests in Paris, the yellow vests, all of that stuff. People are starting to finally get fed up enough with the way things have always been, and are starting to stand in their sovereignty and starting to say, just no more. We're not paying taxes. We're not doing anything. You know, it's complete psychopathic, controlled fuck over. You know, you can't contribute to a system that's completely against you and wants to see you annihilated. But anyway, I've been personally, my empowerment has been coming from bettering my education. I have been working hard towards getting my paramedic degree, and I am almost there. I've gotten all my prerequisites done, and doing so without racking on large amounts of debt and college loans to people, which is really nice. I don't have to pay a bunch of bill collectors. You know, I've been very lucky and very fortunate through scholarships and things of that nature, through, you know, generous people, and just being very lucky and having synchronistic right timing, and, you know, just through the circumstances of life, being able to go to school without having to, you know, do what so many college kids do, you know, which is rack up tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, and then they're not really free. They're just locked into this perpetual debt cycle. I haven't had to do that. And by 2020, I should have my paramedic degree. I start my paramedic training in September, and that's been one of the major things that have been moving me into a better direction of empowerment, you know, finding a better career field and making a difference in my community, giving back in one of the best ways that you can, you know, saving lives as opposed to taking them like so many other professions seem to do in the world. There seems to be a lot of professions where the specialty is taking lives as opposed to saving them, and I would rather save people's lives as opposed to, you know, being in another occupation where I would be killing people. And so far, that's been primarily what I've been doing. Recently, synchronicity, my computer took a major bomb. Dave was here for that. That was quite fascinating. I was running Windows 7, and you know how Windows goes. Windows tends to eventually crash and burn epically, since that's just the general design premise behind Windows, designed obsolescence. So instead of taking it down and paying several $100s to have Best Buy fix it, I decided to just take my own empowerment and fix my computer. I put a couple of Western Digital 1 terabyte hard drives on board and booted Linux Mint 18.2 64-bit operating system. So I'm basically going through the power curves and the learning process of, you know, just doing things yourself and, you know, having your own computer, not running on the Microsoft authoritarian control grid with all the spyware and the malware and the back doors that are built into that operating system. And I am currently running Linux, and I absolutely love it.
Not to mention, Windows is the genocidal operating system, because we all know what Bill Gates loves and is totally into, don't we?
Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's primarily been what I've been doing around here. Oh, and by the way, at the beginning of 2018, I got to visit Katerina while she was up in Oregon, and that was a awesome and cool and empowering experience. I got to help her deal with some personal family stuff that she had been needing to deal with for a long time, and I got to be a part of that very awesome transformation process, and I got to get some growth experience out of that for myself too. So that was kind of mutually beneficial for the both of us.
That's awesome.
So
I
that's
had fun.
primarily what I've been up to.
Well, I've been, I started a band, Vinny and the Vendettas, got signed to a record contract, E4 Records, became the executive producer of American Freedom Radio. I started using OBS software, so now I started live streaming all my shows. Last week I did an interview with Mark Passio, and a different one with Max Egan, and a different one with Sam Vaknin about narcissism. And I've become the media person for the Legalised Cannabis Party here in New Zealand, and made a whole bunch of little videos and things for them on that front, redesigned their logo, redid their policies for them, and a whole bunch of other things. And essentially it occurred to me that it's more an anarcho party than anything else, which is why, despite the fact that it's, one policy, weed, it gets so many votes proportionally to the rest of the little minor parties. I think I've done quite a lot of work. My car died, so I'm stuck without a car now. That's kind of a bit of a bummer. And I think that's really about it.
It's pretty awesome, all in all.
It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And just so people know as well, around March-ish or so, I mean, seeing as Max Egan's a mutual friend of all of ours, basically, he's going to be back on PSEC as well. We're going to be talking about hidden history. For those of you who follow Max's channel on BitChute or YouTube already, you're already going to know what I'm about to say about this. But for those of you that don't, the hidden history stuff that Max Egan has been going into is really fascinating, about the mud flood and about Tartaria and about the whole Scaligerian clusterfuck dumpster fire, and just like all this stuff to it's really interesting. I'm not going to ramble on and on and on about it because Max has already done that on so many episodes. So you can go to bitchute.com/channel/the Crow House because, well, fuck YouTube. Anyway, so yeah, you can check out all his stuff about Tartaria and all of that on there. He's got a bunch of episodes. It's really fascinating and really compelling, and there's also other videos on the internet that you can look at that stuff too. I got really into looking into that because of Max, and I'm looking forward to discussing that with Max. And Vinny's going to be joining us on that too, and I know that Richard's planning on it, and Katerina, if she's free. So we'll all be back again with Max talking about this hidden history stuff, and it's going to be really awesome.
That's been really exciting to delve into. I mean, I'm just gonna have a little aside about that, but especially the information that you've been sharing with me, Dave, from Max. I've been very whoa, this is changing my life. It completely puts everything into new lens perspective that just makes so much sense.
Well, it makes you realize how big the complete fuck over is. I mean, not only do they lie in general with modern education, but they've completely lied about our origins as a species. They've completely screwed over our perception of who are we as a people? Where did we come from? What technological marvels did we already come up with long before the 20th century? Was the 20th century really the first time humanity ever really leapt out, or was it, just the time they want us to think that? Have we done this before, and in ways that make the 20th century look like utter child's play?
I'd like to go back to some of the things you guys were saying. You were talking about your PC, and you were talking about feminism and that kind of thing. And I think I made a post this morning on Facebook about feminism. I had a bit of an argument with some of the feminists from the Labour Party here in New Zealand. They're currently, they're currently very powerful in this country. And an article comes out that says that the opposition party has employed a bunch of trolls to go and troll their political enemies. And I commented on that page and saying, is anybody naive enough to think that the Labour Party don't also have their own teams of trolls? You know, and so and so naturally, a whole bunch of them started trolling me, denying that they get paid to troll. So like,
Wow.
and then they unfriended me. So
Well, see, wait a minute. Don't you know that ultra-rich trillionaires that control multi-billion-dollar governments simply don't have the funding, the technology, the means, or anything to hire trolls? And if you think they do, you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy nut.
yeah, well, the point that I was trying to make with them is that I wasn't actually saying that, yes, they did have teams of trolls in the Labour Party that were paid and whatever. I just said I'm not naive enough to think that they'd never do such a thing, all right? You know, oh, you mean a huge authoritarian government socialist program that hires people to frickin' spread their message? Oh, they would never do something like that. Never! That's ridiculous! And so I after they unfriended me and I blocked them, I put up this post. I put up this post this morning. Socialist, feminist, sociopaths. Why are they all so damn ugly? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, no kidding. Like,
I have a theory on that one.
Like third wave feminism, as it's called, these crazies. Third wave feminism. How I define it is the rejection of femininity through the hatred of masculinity. That's how I define third wave feminism.
I have a little bit more to expound on that, Dave, because I think
Please
that
do.
that kind of sets the biology up definitely to be against itself. And I mean, I've been more in that mindset, and Dave actually was the one that helped me get out of that mindset because I was conditioned by it. I grew up in Portland. You know, there's a lot of like feminazi energy there, and
well,
I think that. Yeah, I think physically, a lot of women, when they're warring against themselves, it generates so much self-hate that they end up having a lot of really dysfunctional behaviors, and they don't have that nurturing principle that is like the actual healthy feminine.
If I may, they seem to be having that kind of problem, except they're just getting aggressive and they're whinging about stuff all the time. And my solution for them is very simple. Look, feminists, just be a man. All right, just be a man about it.
You know what, Katerina? You know what you are absolute proof of? You are absolute proof that if a third wave social justice warrior feminist stops being a third wave social justice warrior feminist, you know what they become? Hot.
I used to be a social justice warrior, but now I'm really hot.
Oh my God! Hot is a social construct made up by the patriarchy. You're a bigot.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I think being hot is kind of fucking objective. You know, you're like, whoa.
Want to stop being a raging narcissistic feminist? Take Katerina Roy Richard. This pill will make you extremely sexy. It has the power of all of the omega-3 vitamins and the super kick-ass paradigm-shifting nature. You could make a pharmaceutical ad out of that.
I've got a comment in the chat room here.
Shuts up my own ass.
I've got a comment in the chat room here from One World Music. He says he dated a hardcore feminist and she was too aggressive and did all the thrusting, and then she turned gay. It was like, apparently you didn't see that coming.
Well, see, that's the funny thing is I'm a bisexual, and I have an understanding of that, like, that side of myself, but it doesn't have to overtake me. You know, I think all of us have the masculine and feminine inside of us, and if they're in healthy balance with each other, I think that it's just when the testosterone starts raging really hard in a woman and they start growing a beard and like belly hair. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, they look like Trigglypuff.
Right, but that's the thing, is the paradigms absolutely influence the biology. I actually used to have PCOS, and my testosterone levels were like through the roof, higher than men's. Like, just 5 times higher than the average males.
Yeah, well,
And-
what they've done...
They're putting chemicals in the water.
Yeah.
The freaking bisexuals angry.
Testosterone is good male energy that can actually change shit, but what they've done is they've tried to take the feminine hormones and put them into men, and they've tried to take the masculine hormones and put them into women, and now women are fighting with men instead of fucking. Now, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't work out for anybody in that scenario.
No, and I think a lot of the problem too is we have it wrapped up in all of the sexual abuse stuff and all the pedophilia and like all the creepy stuff is like really behind all of this feminism, and a lot of these women are just angry at men because they've been so molested as children usually. And like, I mean, I know that was the origins of it in my sphere growing up was, hate men and, fuck that, and let's just be angry and like basically grow balls so that we can show them, and that kind of feeling. And I think that stepping away from that and realizing that we have to actually nurture ourselves and like take care of that fucking inner child that got so reamed over so that you can actually live who you are. Sorry, what?
Speaking of the inner child, I had this realization while I was on the interview with Max last week that if you'd been paying attention in the truth movement 10 years ago, you're getting a sense of deja vu right about now, okay? Hope, change, a candidate that's going to overthrow the New World Order, and then all of a sudden, hey, he's against the deep state and against the wall or whatever. Betrayal, all right? And then there's the Occupy movement. Oh my God, it's Occupy Wall Street. It's going to really work or anything. Does nothing, all right? And now we've got the yellow vests and stuff like that. You see this thing? And the realization comes that everybody's on a 10-year cycle. So what that means is that if you want to brainwash a generation, you have to brainwash them every 10 years before they figure out that something's up. And you have to repeat that same formula. So because I'm in New Zealand and my show's in America, the thing is a little bit different for me. So I will see in New Zealand in 2008 a blue candidate named John Key getting elected on a platform of change. The same year, a blue candidate in the United States wins on a platform of change. Both of those candidates get our countries into more debt than has ever been recorded before. And directly after that, in the year of our Lord, was it 2016 that Trump was elected, we get a red candidate to take over from the blue candidate who promises to smash the deep state and do everything like that. And then in New Zealand, a year after, we get a red candidate who's promising to do all the right things for New Zealand or whatever. And then directly what happens afterwards is the trade deals that they said that they wouldn't sign and things like that turn out to just change the name of the trade deal and sign a completely different one that does the exact same thing as the first one. And every single promise that they make, they appear to be doing something, and then if you look actually into what they've actually done, it's the exact opposite to what they claim that they're doing, which is what you wanted them to do in the first place. So I see the lie very, very clearly because I've seen it before, and I remember it so clearly because the last time I saw these lies, I was investigating them. I was doing videos about them. I was explaining the paradigm to other people, and only now that I see the repetition of the cycle of brainwashing do I suddenly realize what the game is. Every 10 years, the exact same thing will happen.
Well, it's as the old adage goes, history forgotten, doomed to repeat itself. And it's that realization of noticing the pattern and that globalist psychopathic tendency, how they play that game. That's how you break the conditioning and programming. When you can see what they're doing, that's the first step to taking some real action. I mean, knowing yet again is half the battle, but, it's that same cycle that they like to play over and over and over again, and then do the divide and conquer tactics and everything else.
One thing that's been really starting to break the cycle a lot here, I guess because the elites are getting a bit overconfident here and overstepping, is I've noticed at least here as far as all these different people here, their belief systems, everybody has a line that, do not cross this line. It cannot be crossed. And everybody's line is in a different place, right? So these elites keep getting more and more full retard with things here. And every time they do something stupid, like they cross a million people's line and they were dead ass asleep yesterday and awake today. Or like, holy shit, how did that happen? Then they have to question their reality. Now, the thing is, and like, I've seen this addressed like on your show, on Max's show, on other shows, and it's like one thing that just like sometimes I'm just like trying to blurt out at the screen like, oh, I need to say this, you're not covering this up, but I can do it now, yay, is that when people go into that, they have to go through a process of recovering their own paradigms, deprogramming and reprogramming, and it's painful. They have all this shame, they have all this guilt, they have all this nasty stuff that they have to vomit out of them first before they can step up and unite with people and assist in taking down the New World Order, however that's going to work. There's a period of time, it's almost kind of like getting over food poisoning. Like, you have food poisoning. That's the first step, the awakening. But then before you're all better and walking around as normal, there's the process of drinking the water with the activated charcoal and vomiting out the poison and getting your stomach pumped and whatever. So, like, there's that process of getting all the garbage out of you. You can't just go from recognizing, I have food poisoning, oh my God, to the next second, I'm all better now. It's good. I'm just going to go like run the 10-minute mile, So there's this transition of just vomiting out this programming, and it feels physically, emotionally, mentally worse than any flu you could possibly have, and will sometimes take half a decade or more to completely process through. Like, I've been on this journey with Katerina for about 7 years now, and only now is she at the point where it's like, all right, I'm just ready to start getting on here with Richard and Vinny and just really talking about all this empowered stuff. Because I'm sure you probably remember before in the last conversation you had with Katerina, she was a little more timid. And now she's just like outspoken, like, yeah! So like that's taken a transition period of coping with the fact that her reality that she thought was a reality was nothing more than a bunch of narcissistically programmed societal brainwash bullshit. She had to take the time to vomit out the programming. And the people have to learn to discern the difference between people who are vomiting it out and people who are dead ass asleep and just refuse to wake up no matter what. The people who are vomiting out, have compassion for them, help them as much as they'll allow you to, because they actually want it. They're choosing to move forward. They just need a helping hand. But the people who refuse no matter what, like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound cruel, but let them walk right off a cliff. They're already on the Titanic. And you need to get in the lifeboats with the people who want to be saved. The people that are trying to rearrange the furniture on the deck of the Titanic thinking it's going to solve anything, they're going down with the ship. Don't go down with them. So it's important to discern the difference between the people who are trying to make their way to the lifeboats and the people who insist on rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. So it's a very important process. There's tons of people waking up all the time, but if someone wakes up today, it might be 5 years from now before they can be really proactive in doing anything, and people need that time.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. Going back onto the yellow vest type thing, there's a whole bunch of people like jumping on this bandwagon. Oh yeah, the yellow vest, they're going to fight the establishment and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, what's their strategy? And they're like, what do you mean? It's just, if you're gonna defeat an enemy, have a fucking strategy. All right, what is your strategy? Well, we're gonna prevent our local businesses that have nothing to do with the New World Order from opening, and we're gonna burn normal people's cars. Okay, and
right.
and the elite with unlimited slaves, unlimited resources, and unlimited propaganda platforms are just gonna give up? Cause you burned some cars that didn't belong to them, and you fucked a few local businesses that they didn't own. This is somehow not going to result in them justifying some kind of action against you. Perhaps order out of fucking chaos, you goddamn morons.
I gotta correct you. I gotta correct you on one small thing, because I've seen a lot of boots on the ground footage from places like Truth Stream Media, We Are Change, so on and so forth. I'm not talking about the mainstream media coverage or most.
I've watched all those videos too. None of them went into what these people's strategy is.
What I've seen is the vast majority of people, and Max has already covered this too, the vast majority of people over there are just doing peaceful non-compliance so that the gears of the machine shut down. The absolute tiny minority of people are the ones lighting cars on fire and shit like that. Most of them are peaceful. I have watched the hours of boots on the ground footage, and most of the people are just peacefully non-compliant while the cops are out there in armadas and throwing tear gas and harassing them. And then check this out. You know that the rabble-rousers lighting the cars on fire are hired government shills because the cops don't do anything to stop them. You've got a helicopter overhead. It's like the people lighting the fires are coordinating with the helicopter and the police. But the peaceful people standing there doing fuck all, they're the ones getting the tear gas.
But again, those peaceful people, what's their strategy to deal with those provocateurs?
Yeah, I mean, that part I agree. I can't confirm
They've
or
got
deny
no strategy.
that they actually have one. But I'm just saying most of them are not doing the chaos creating.
Who gives a shit? It only takes one poison apple to fucking contaminate the whole goddamn barrel. And that's the thing. Any movement has to understand that they will get infiltrated. All right? Any provocateur that comes out, any movement has to be able to immediately identify and expel them. All right? That kind of thing. But go ahead, bro.
I've never been to Paris before. This was the first time I had ever been there. The first full day of being there. And we heard that the subways were closed and all the major tourist attractions were closed and everybody was warning us away from the city center. So we thought, well, we'll rent some of those little scooters that they have on the street corners that you can just pick up and drop off wherever you want. And we'll just go around everything to get the locations we needed to film. And so that didn't end up happening. What ended up happening was we rode straight into a riot/protest on a scooter.
On vacation or for work?
Yeah, we had heard that they were closing down, all the major tourist sites from the Eiffel Tower to the Palace of Versailles. But we weren't really going to those places, so we thought we would have a chance to sort of go around everything, but instead we just got caught up in the middle of it, really.
It was the weirdest thing. It was like riding up on a movie set, because they closed down not just all the tourist attractions, but they closed down all of the businesses in the city center too.
I just think it's weird how everything's closed in the middle of a Saturday. Everything's all the stores are closed. All up and down the street. Everybody's turning the lights off. People are in here freaking out. There's people in here that work here, they turn all the lights off. Yeah, it's an interesting way to come see Paris.
It's a really weird thing for a Saturday afternoon to arrive in a huge city like Paris and have everything be like a ghost town, and just have hundreds of people in yellow vests hanging out on street corners and marching around.
It was totally surreal, and we were just out of place.
I think by closing down all the businesses like that, because I've never seen them do that for protests or anything here in America. They'll put up barricades and stuff, guardrails, but they don't usually shut down everything.
Down
We don't have any kind of face protection, dude.
I know that.
Cops are marching them back. They're marching them back. I think we turned down the wrong street, dude.
Google said this was the way.
Thanks, Google.
By shutting everything down.
Some areas of central Paris look like a ghost town this morning with streets deserted.
Pretty much everything. All they did was just leave it open for more people protesting, because at that point there's nothing else to do. Everything's closed. So there's nothing, it's a Saturday, most people aren't at work anyway, but the people that would have been, they're not because everything's closed. It's just really, it's like a backwards way of them promoting this protest, really.
Tear gas. Smoking out the alley.
Seemed to be almost the only thing anyone was talking about anyway. But yeah, it was just weirdly, eerily shut down.
Everything we heard driving up on this before we got there was all about how this is the next French Revolution. This is the redo of the 1968 protest. This is going to be so bad. It's going to be the worst thing ever. But what we ended up seeing mostly was just a lot of angry people walking around. And then riot cops shooting tear gas at them.
Nobody's even doing anything. Why are they tear gassing people when no one's actually doing anything?
Did you see that, BitChute? Probably better you didn't. Yeah.
What, are they just retaking the street? They don't want people in this street? They're just going to push everyone back?
That's good, right?
This is insane, man.
Yeah, let's see if Luke got back.
I ran before it got me. It didn't get me.
All right.